But first, now you are hearing a lot of big talk about standing up to China. Pretty brave talk, really, given our position. Given a Chinese propaganda film, I'll show you. Now, Australia wants an independent inquiry into how this virus started in China, and why not? Because it's since killed nearly 100 of us and just put 600,000 more out of work. But China's saying, shut up. And it's backed that up with threats, and by banning meat exports from 4 of our big abattoirs, and it's now threatening to kill our barley exports too. Our business leaders are absolutely freaking. Think of all the billions of dollars we're going to lose. Now, we've heard some coalition MPs particularly say, well, stuff China. We won't shut up about this or about China being an aggressive dictatorship that threatens us. And you no doubt heard Andrew Leigh, for instance, with Peter Credlin just before. Meanwhile, though, some Labor MPs are attacking these guys, and I have to say they are sounding like paid flunkies of this Chinese dictatorship. I mean, just take the far-left Labor Senator Kim Carr. Yesterday attacking them for saying our scientists should not collaborate with China on research, like military research, that it could then use against us.
They have called for an end to international collaboration in research until it can be regulated and it's alleged to protect our national security. And equally disturbing is their assault on the reputation of our leading scientists and researchers. Now, this is a new low, even in the long history of shameful attacks on science by members of this government. It recalls the campaigns directed against science by the far-right politicians in Europe in the 1930s.
What a donkey. Our MPs are like Nazis if they say we should avoid collaborating too much with this dangerous new dictatorship. That's shameful.
Those were very disappointing remarks, and I have no doubt that people have found that deeply offensive, and that is for something for Senator Carr to reflect on.
And then, of course, there was Labor's Andrew Leigh, who suggested the problem wasn't that China is in fact an aggressive dictatorship. No, the problem was that we looked like, he said, America's deputy sheriff. Wouldn't China love Leigh saying that? You know, telling us to stop being so close to America or China might do something to us. And it sure could, which is exactly the problem, Mr. Leigh. Now, I mentioned I'd show you a Chinese video, and I'm getting to it. It should scare you, but it might actually make you wonder, too, if it's really smart, all this talk today about standing up for our values against China's threats.
We will always stand our ground when it comes to the things that we believe in and the values that we uphold.
Look, great words. And speaking for myself, I would rather be a bit poorer and free to speak my mind in this country than a bit richer with Chinese cash and be forced to shut up. But my point is that China is not just a threat because it's such a big buyer of our stuff. It's also getting dangerously strong militarily. And it's really now flaunting that power, while we, here in Australia, much weaker, we are faffing around with our military spending like, and Exhibit A, our disastrous submarines project. But here's that Chinese video. It's propaganda that China has clearly made, goes for 5-6 minutes, clearly made to frighten countries like us about its new power, the missiles and the martial music in the background. Have a listen for half a minute and see if that isn't exactly what China is trying to tell you. Okay, given that Chinese propaganda you've just seen, what do you now think of a Labor spokesman who says we mustn't get too close to the United States? Who else does this guy think, who else on this planet would save us if China turned on us with that kind of hardware? Because we're nowhere near capable of saving ourselves. And speaking of that, what have we been doing here to help ourselves while China's rapidly built up its navy and while it's used that new navy to steal the disputed territory of the South China Sea and threaten aircraft from other countries flying over it?
Philippine military aircraft, I'm warning you again. Leave immediately, or you will bear forward responsibility for all the consequences.
I'll tell you what we've been doing. 4 years ago, then Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull said, whoops, we better get ourselves 12 new submarines to replace our old ones because, you know, China. That was 4 years ago. The problem started straight away. These subs couldn't be nuclear, couldn't be nuclear armed. We're too good for that. And they had to be built in Australia because think of the votes. Jobs, of course. And it got much worse from there. Let me show you just some of the recent headlines about this massive project. It's facing delays. Building these subs wasn't going to start for yet another 4 years, but even then, the contract details still haven't even been decided. And the builder wants a 15-month extension on just the design work. Meanwhile, the cost has blown out yet again. It started as a $50 billion project. Now it's $90 billion. And when you add up all the delays to our defence projects, they are behind by a total of 57 years. China must be laughing at us, and particularly at this bit. Do you know the last of those 12 submarines that we've ordered and are paying a colossal $90 billion for? It's not going to be delivered on current schedules. It's not going to be delivered for another 34 years. 34 years. Let me show you more of that propaganda video from China, the one of its navy. Does China look like it will wait 34 years for us to get our submarine fleet in order? So yes, I love this talk, love it, about standing up to China. But I've got to ask, what have our politicians actually done to back this talk up with firepower, to defend ourselves if things ever did really get bad? What have they done so that we can speak freely to a dictatorship and not be this scared of the consequences?